Hey, we're Matt and Heather with the Joyful Family Podcast, and we're so excited you're joining us today. Today we're talking about how marriage is like a whole package deal, right?
Exactly. And I was talking to a pastor who'd been married for over 40 years, and I asked him, so what is there one thing, one key that you would say is critical to success? And his response, what I thought was so profound. And he said, no, I can't give you one key because it's not just one thing, it's a lifestyle. Like
Right.
you can't just magic formula, if I do this, then I'm gonna have a great marriage. It's a lifestyle of every day waking up and choosing each other. And I thought that was really good, and I pondered on that. And as we've gone through counseling or had counseling with people since then, I've kind of incorporated that concept. And we were talking before this earlier about marriage is kind of like you're baking a cake. And early in our marriage, Heather was pregnant with our second child, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. And I was trying to do something really nice, and I was going to make her cookies. And homemade cookies, not really homemade. I guess there's the thing on the back of the Nestle, whatever it was.
As homemade as he gets, right?
Yes. Hey,
Right.
don't judge. What I did is I didn't do the ingredients right, and I may have doubled up on the salt.
They were salt cookies.
Salt cookies. It was unpleasant.
It was awful.
It was awful. The intentions were great. Pregnant woman was kind of hangry after that though, so it didn't really work out super great. But the point is, you have to have the right mix. You have to have the right ingredients to have the marriage that not only that you want, but that God wants for you. He created us to be humans that communicate. Communication is such a big thing in a marriage.
Well, and everything's intertwined. Communication is part of intimacy, that is part of pursuit. Everything is literally intertwined. And so when one thing is off, it kind of sends everything off. A lot of times people stop pursuing each other. Well, then that leads to boredom and people going out and finding attention from somewhere else, which ultimately leads to affairs. Not always, but it's just an example, So you've got to keep the pursuit alive. You got to keep the excitement alive at the same time as communication. And so they literally all intertwine.
Yeah, and I would say there are some critical components. Just like if you are going to make a cake or do cookies, you have to have the flour. You have to have some salt, a little. You have to have the sugar. If you're in our family, you have to have a lot of chocolate chips. And so marriage does have some similarities. Well, you have to have, and she just mentioned communication. Communication is extremely important. Without healthy communication, you're going to struggle with conflict. You're going to struggle with intimacy. There's so many different things. Communication's a huge one.
Big, yeah.
Intimacy is you cannot have a marriage without intimacy. Now that doesn't always mean sex, because there are couples that deal with issues there.
Physical ailments, things that they're not able to, and so that doesn't mean that your marriage is doomed if you're one of those, right? You just have to think outside the box a little.
Yes, but emotional intimacy is an absolute non-negotiable part. Pursuit is huge, as you mentioned. Then there's things like grace, forgiveness. For us, the most important ingredients is faith. We build our marriage on our faith, and doing so, we build it on something that's stronger than our failings and flaws and imperfections and things. I think she's perfect, but sometimes she does things that aren't always perfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yes, you're perfect for me.
Lord.
But in a marriage, and again, we have to have the right ingredients, and it's the right balance. We do a lot of conversations with couples that they do everything great, but this one thing. And that one thing is such a glaring need. That's why the book 5 Love Languages is so important, because it understands there's certain ingredients that I need that she necessarily doesn't, or the right mix of things.
Yeah, you learn how to love your spouse well, and that's why we also always encourage the prayer, Lord, help me love my spouse the way they need to be loved today. So it's not about you, it's about what do they need. And so, keeping that in balance too, to where we're always pouring out, but also that's not just one-sided, because I know a lot of times we'll say something and then people take it to the extreme of the other side. No, this is always, marriage is 100-100. We don't say 50-50, because you've both got to give everything that you have towards the relationship, right? And so it's always 100-100. And so don't take that and say, well, they're not doing it, so I'm not. No, start where you are. Be the first to say, hey, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and I think, again, the mix is so important. And early on, we didn't always get the mix right. We didn't always have a typical young, naive, ignorant, I would maybe overemphasize physical intimacy, and she's just wanting to be cuddled. And, or, I don't, touchy feeling conversations. Hey, how's it going? That's something that's really maybe more important to her than to me. And so I wouldn't always give that area the right amount of attention. And so the balance part of it is that you can't pick and choose the things that are important to your spouse. It would be nice.
Well, yeah, but it's like with anything. So, like in our house, if something's off balance, if our priorities are out of order, whatever, you can start to see the shift in our home, like the peace level leaves. Things just aren't flowing correctly. And it's the same for our marriage. You can start to tell when there's like little rifts, not big things, but annoyances, things that aren't really, everything's just not going as peacefully as they should. And it's easy to just find those super quick. Like when you get in this habit, you find them super quick and you correct them a lot easier than instead of letting it go for months at a time. And then, 2-3 months go down the road and then you're like miles apart. You're like, whoa, where'd we get here? Well, it's those day by day things where you just start to veer off course and that gap gets bigger. And so as you start to make mental note and start to watch, you'll see things go off a little bit at a time. Last weekend we were not clicking. I don't know.
It just was not clicking.
It just was not clicking. And it's nothing that either of us were necessarily doing. We just were not clicking in our communication, in our actions, with our attitudes. And so we had to be quick to nip that and say, okay, no, here we go. Let's get back on track. And so it's just being quicker to identify those things. And now, instead of it going months down the road, right now we are quick. Okay, hey, one weekend, this was not a great weekend for us. Let's fix it and move forward.
Yeah, and that's what the lifestyle is, that every day we choose each other.
Yeah.
Every day I choose to pursue Heather's needs. Every day I evaluate. And I was reading this morning, going through my Bible readings, and it was talking about, that God gave you a spirit of self-discipline, which I love that word discipline, because it's self-correcting. Like I have to every day be self-correcting in how I treat Heather. And am I creating the marriage with my words and my actions towards her that I want? And so I think it's so important that we have that. It's a lifestyle. There's not a day in my life that I take my ring off and say, I'm not married to Heather today. It doesn't work that way. If you have an on-off switch in your marriage, you need to reach out to us for counseling, because it's a lifestyle. It's a pursuit. And so I just want to encourage you, if you might be in the middle of a rocky relationship or a rocky season, and we get a lot of that, what do I do if my spouse isn't willing to work on the marriage? Start now. Start small.
Yeah.
Be the agent of change. You can start creating your own habits, your own healthy habits, your own every day, that self-discipline, self-correction. Read the scriptures where it says to be, quick to listen, slow to anger, and slow to speak. And so use that. If your communication and you really want a healthy marriage that has great communication, start with you.
And inevitably, anytime that him or I are praying to God, like, fix my husband, fix my spouse, right? They are driving me nuts. I need you to fix this. God always turns it back on the things that I need to fix about me.
It's really annoying.
It is. It sometimes is, because I just want him to fix what's annoying me, right? And so through that, he'll start to work on me. So if you're the only one and you're like, my spouse is not willing to work on things, start working on yourself. Start bettering yourself, because you're going to need to be healed and work through your stuff before you can move on to the next level, right? And so we always say start with where you are.
Yep. And I would say probably one of the most important things, a lifestyle of a healthy marriage, is joy.
Right. And
knowing that we're okay means I can have joy whenever it's not always fun or not always easy. There's last weekend, it wasn't super fun, every interaction that we had with each other. If she would have repented and apologized the moment, Saturday morning happened, it probably would have been better. But no, I had a lot to do with that. But I never wondered if our marriage was in trouble.
Right.
Because every day we choose each other. Right. Like, we choose to never use the threat of divorce on each other. I never worry if there's one conversation that's going to go south. Oh my gosh, her eyes are going to wander now. Because it's a lifestyle. And because of that, I can have joy and peace in these not fun moments, because we're okay.
Yeah. So if you find yourself in a place and you need somebody to reach out to us. We would love to counsel with you. We have counseling packages on our website at ajoyfulfamily.com/counseling. We do individual sessions. Couple sessions for marriage are always better if both parties will come and be a part. So check that out. Reach out to us if you need more information on that. As always, we're a 501c3. If God lays it on your heart to give to help us reach other families across the world, really, you can do that on our website at ajoyfulfamily.com/give.
Yes, and check out our other podcasts. We have a YouTube channel as well that you can listen on Spotify or watch on YouTube. But check us out. Share with your friends, your family, and anyone else who you feel like needs a little boost. If you find a good post that really speaks to you, don't necessarily tag your spouse and say, hey, you need to work on this. That happens sometimes.
Nope.
It's not really good to see spouses start fighting with each other on Instagram. So don't do that. But
don't do that. But it is okay to share things and say, hey, this spoke to me. What do you think of this?
Yep.
Make it more self-reflective and not blame reflective.
Absolutely. But check us out, and we look forward to being here next time.
See you next time.